Up, 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 up. Yo, welcome to the Beat People podcast. This is episode 63. We got special guests in the house from ASM. We have Dominic and we have Glen. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing great.
Good, good. What's up, Ken?
Oh, trying to mute my stream.
Did you get caught up?
Around here.
You're done with the show already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Man,
Mute the entire stream. Autopilot.
All right, yeah. So, yeah, I've been busy. Have you all been busy? I think you guys have. What with new Hydrasynth update dropping today and all. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
It's been a busy time for everyone. Well, maybe not for everyone because I guess a lot of people are in isolation now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the good thing about us doing these shows. Like typically we'll do it on Saturday mornings, afternoons, or whatever. Now we're kind of doing a couple of them a week, and so hopefully that's kind of helping with some of the isolation and boredom. So D still in the place. What's up, D still?
Yeah.
And so hey, let's talk about ASM. I mean, like I said before, we kind of like to talk about origin story, and ASM kind of came, shot out there with a silver bullet. It was kind of out of nowhere. A lot of people were surprised, like, what? Who's ASM? And whoa, what's this synth? This incredible synth. And who's ASM? And then look at this synth, and who's ASM? It's kind of like the way things went. So, and I don't mind whichever one. Well, first, I'm getting ahead of myself. Dom, introduce yourself and tell the folks what you do for ASM and what role you play.
Okay. So I'm Dominic Au, product manager of ASM, and especially for this project for the Hydrasynth, I've started like back in 2017 with Chen in Medley, and later Glen joined us, and we changed quite a number of things, and then the Hydrasynth came out. And
Nice.
I used to work for Focusrite Innovation.
Okay.
And later joined Medley, and later we built up this new brand, ASM.
Nice. Cool. And Glen, how about yourself? You're no stranger to the show, but how'd you come to join up with ASM? Because you were previously with Arturia.
Yeah. It's funny. We were actually, looking for other manufacturing partners at Arturia, and I ended up meeting the president, and she said, "Yeah, we're looking at starting a synth division. Do you know anybody who you might recommend to come help us?" And I said, "Really? Well, talk to me." And so we started talking. We talked over about 10-month period, and everything was great. They're wonderful people. I was inspired to give it a try and see what was up, and I'm super glad I did. It's been wonderful.
We are too. We're glad you did too, because I got to say, I think, and probably the press has been telling you this already too, but I think the Hydrasynth is one of the most exciting things to come along, and not because it's you guys' project and we're kind of close to it, but at the same time, I mean, it's just a damn good synth. It kills so many things. It can be so much to you, and especially coming from beat maker's perspective, where there's not always a lot of money, a lot of a big budget or something to have a bunch of different synths from a beat maker's perspective. And even with the desktop synth, it's pretty cool to have something that can really almost do anything. And like you're only limited by your imagination, and you guys are still putting out updates. So I commend you guys for that. It's a good product, really good product.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So that was, I guess, the origin story. Then that's kind of how you guys came together. And Glen, when you joined the company, how the whole Hydrasynth thing come together? Was it predating you, or was it there? Was it kind of an augmentation of something that existed, or how that whole thing come together?
They had started work on it, I think probably in June or July of 2017. I think that's by about August. They were saying, "Hey, we've got some specs we'd like you to look at." And I'm like, "Well, no, I can't. I've got a job and I can't do anything right now." So We finally made the deal, and I left in December. Then I kind of came on. So they had started down some of the technological paths and had some ideas and stuff already laid out. And then there was stuff that I came in and I said, well, let's kind of twist it a little bit and do a little different stuff on it. But you know, a lot of products in general come out of, you know, what your engineering team can do. And so if the engineers say, hey, I came up with a way to do, you know, a sub-harmonic oscillator that can tune in a fifth or something, you go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. So a lot of product design is based on what resources you have. You know, there's times where, yeah, you are developing from the ground up, but a lot of times engineering projects are based on, okay, what resources do we have? What's going on? And what can we do? And, you know, it's like Legos. Now we can build up, you know, our Lego roller coaster or whatever.
Cool. What was some of the challenges that you guys met when kind of developing it in that phase of things?
That way, Dominic. Dominic's too quiet. I want Dominic to talk.
Yeah. Well, what were some of the challenges?
Well, the distance is not really a problem for us, although the time zone is different, but we keep communicating very closely. And yeah, and Glen is really good at pushing the team's boundaries, so especially the engineering teams.
Well, he pushes boundaries of buttons.
Little boat.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
No doubt. And so what about with the actual developing of the synth? Did you kind of meet were there some things you maybe wanted to do that you couldn't do for whatever limitations, you just kind of met some roadblocks with?
Well, I think building the polyphonic aftertouch to our taste to really work musically is something which spends quite a lot of time, and we have a schedule. We need to release the product, and we need to really test things like in multi directions with different ways to do it, different technologies and different designs. But we're glad that finally we made it. Yeah, so I think that's the polyphonic aftertouch thing is one of the most challenging things.
Well, Glen,
I can see that because I kind of feel like that is that the reason why there's been no keyboards with it, or very few keyboards with it since like 30 years ago. I mean, it seems like there has to be some sort of challenge there, but you guys pulled it off though.
Thanks.
Yeah, the challenge, you know, anytime you deal with something that's mechanical, you know, yeah, you've got electrical aspects, but then you've got mechanical aspects, and that's where it gets difficult. You know, that's, you know, keyboard actions are difficult, guitar necks, you know, and there's never a right or wrong. You just try to offend the least number of people. You know, if you go to a bunch of guitar players and you say, "What's the best guitar neck ever?"
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have fights between the Strat guys and the Les Paul guys and the Gretsch guys, and yeah, and everybody's going to say, no, this is the best neck. And you get the same thing with piano actions and keybed actions. So anytime you've got mechanical thrown in, that's just its own whole can of worms. You'll never see me do digital drums because that's the biggest mechanical feel nightmare there is.
When it comes to the prototyping side of things, was that a pretty big change for you as far as like being able to get turnaround on hey, I have this idea for something, and then getting engineering development done on that, and then prototyping it and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Dom had been at Medley for a while. I hadn't been. So I can actually reach here on my desktop. Yeah, you know, Hydrasynth started off like this.
Wow.
You know, it was driven by Max MSP. And so like right when I started, you know, they were talking about, you know, the wave scanning and that kind of stuff that they were thinking about doing. I said, wow, that'd be really great to be able to hear and see what it sounds like. And like, oh, you want to hear it? And so like a couple days later, you know, FedEx is our best friend. So
wow,
I get this thing and the Max MSP, and we're like listening to stuff. And this was like the spec wasn't even done yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to hear stuff. And that's totally new for me, because every other company, you go through and you bake the spec. The spec is pretty much done.
Yeah.
And then engineering starts to build and starts to design from that spec. So a lot of the problems you end up with is by the time you get down to seeing a first working product, you've made so many choices in the design and the UI and everything getting up to that point that you're like, okay, well, we are where we are. Oh yeah, I totally forgot a whole big section of stuff I have to do. And now it's going to be,
next
a shift function,
yeah,
1, 4, 3 to access the page. And with this, we were able to try stuff right away.
So that's kind of cool. So from what you just said, it's almost like because of the way the timeline was and the way the kind of project line was, you were able to almost make good on certain usability. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have to go back and kind of think of it as an afterthought because you were kind of baking it all in while listening and getting that feedback almost in real time, like in hyperspeed, so you could easily go back and change things.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could hear the engine.
Yeah.
I mean, Dominic, we didn't like add a bunch of buttons or anything in any of our hardware, did we?
Not really. And I think Chen is very responsive to what we want to have. So we don't need to wait long, and we will have a prototype working, and do you like this feature? Yeah, why not? And then we'll add it into the engine.
Yeah.
Oh, and tell people who Chen is, just in case people don't know. Chen is kind of the other part of the trio here.
He's the chief engineer for ASM,
Mm-hmm.
the chief guy for it. Yeah, he's the one behind the algorithms mainly.
Nice.
So sometimes he come up with some very interesting ideas. Oh, I have an idea. How about such algorithm? Maybe it will work. Yeah, then we will try it and maybe tweak it a little bit, and that's good. Very good.
Nice.
Yeah, math is his hobby, just like the rest of us here.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I don't know, guess with this one, pick up the can, see how it sounds. It's my math. So somebody, DB Paul in the chat asked, what was the ultimate goal behind designing a Hydrasynth?
There.
Completion. That's what it came out to be.
Playability really was one big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted this product to be a musical instrument. I think that you get products that have lasting quality, that they're their own instrument. So a Mini Moog has lasting quality. CS80 has lasting quality. Prophet 5. When I think of, there's so many synths that like came and gone and came and gone and came and gone, and there's a few people that really want a Fismo or something, but they came and they died for specific reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I really wanted us to make something that was a statement product that could last.
That makes sense.
So one of the things about the whole development cycle that you were talking about, not just prototyping ideas and DSP and that sort of thing, but what about like the physical units? Because the physical units are robust and big, heavy metal. Is that an issue for you when you're prototyping something and you have to ship it back and forth and that sort of thing?
No, not really. I mean, shipping's easy, and if they're making one unit, it's just as easy for them to make two. So, Dominic's based in Hong Kong, Chin's based in Shanghai, the factory's in Zhuhai, I'm in Los Angeles. So we're already kind of spread out. The factory is maybe a 2 or 3 hour drive for Dominic, but the reality is all of us are remote. So yeah, they build things and ship them out, and everybody gets them. I've got some metal and some stuff here that they've sent me, button samples and stuff, and a lot of it, Dominic knows products. You can look around his studio there. He knows stuff and he knows quality, and he's a really good badger. So he'll get in there and he'll fight. Nope, your quality's not good enough. Nope, quality's not good enough. And so Dominic really kind of keeps a lot of people to task on that stuff.
I know Dom is a big synth player. I mean, he's got Polly Pumpkins, which is his band. Dom, can you tell us a little bit about, your musical interests are very synth oriented as it is. So how does that play into your product development and the tasks that you handle for ASM?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to have the passion into this thing. So this passion need to affect the whole team to let them, start to know about what they're going to build, what is important to be a good product in such field. And I think to raise their interest in really building what they're going to do is very important. So yeah, from my background, I realized that even when I was a kid, I listened to music that I liked, but I didn't know what particular elements I like. But now I revisit and realize, oh, that's synthesizer. Oh, that's synthesizer. So after starting to work for Focus Renovation, I have contact to more synthesizers and to trade shows and start to have more knowledge about it. And I think I ignited also Chen's interest in synthesizer. So I also sold my second-hand synths to him and other guys in Shanghai.
Yeah, I noticed that Chen has been making more synthesizer-based music lately, and so it's kind of infectious. It's one of those things that once people kind of start getting into it, there's no turning back.
Yeah. Chen did this one thing recently, and you could definitely hear. For the people who don't know, Chen, he's in a symphonic black metal band.
Oh wow!
So he's our symphonic black metal programmer.
There you go.
But he did like a whole synth thing.
Yeah.
They went down on lockdown about a month and a half before we started going on lockdown. Yeah, and so he did a synth thing, and me and Dominic were blown away. It was really good.
Wow. And hold on, I was wondering.
Hey, I'll touch on this real quick just because we're still getting a lot of questions about delivery dates and that sort of thing. Can you guys speak a little bit about just people trying to get units and dealing with the whole COVID-19 and just all of that?
Yeah, so me and Dominic don't really track shipments at all. We leave that to the sales guy. We kind of focus on products. So people write, hey, where's things? It's like, I don't know, talk to a distributor. I do happen to know, because I talked to our sales guy today, that there's a batch that is sitting in Long Beach Harbor right now on a ship. So they may offload it in the next day or two, depending. So
that's a hot scoop right there.
What was that?
Yeah.
I said that's the hot scoop right there.
That's the hot scoop right there. So yeah, there's a batch waiting to get off of a ship in Long Beach Harbor right now here in LA. Supposedly there's stuff going to Europe as well, but I don't know how many and I don't know where, and I really don't track any of that stuff much. Okay. The only thing Dominic and I deal with are when there's problems and delays. So like early on in production, we had a problem with a third-party supplier's cable that they made. And so we had to reject this cable because we were just having all kinds of problems. And to change to a different manufacturer on it, it was like a 2.5 week or 3 week turnaround time. That was early on, Dominic?
Yeah.
And we changed over this other thing. So it's like all of a sudden there's a 3 week delay for a flat cable. It's like everything else was done, everything else was baked. You get a 3 week delay because a third party can't ship something. There were also quantity and quality issues. We were rejecting a lot of metal work. When you start getting your first batches of metal work from a third party again, there's things that we turn back, buttons and stuff that we turn back. Stuff that, having been at 3 other companies, I know none of those companies would have rejected about 90% of that stuff. But we did, because we didn't want people getting a scratched unit or a unit with a weird wave in it or something. So we rejected things and kind of held them to a tighter standard. So that puts more delays and things. Then COVID-19 hits us, as well as
for me, when it comes down to it, oh, my bad. So my bad, I'm freezing over here a little bit. When it comes down to it, for me, I'd rather the product be right when it gets to me. Then, I think there's too much of a trend nowadays of companies, and whether small or big, shipping stuff before it's ready. And then you end up being, the guys who paid to beta test. You know what I mean? And that sucks. So I can appreciate, even though sometimes that wait is grueling, right? When you buy something you're excited about and you're waiting for it, that wait is grueling. I'd much rather it be ready for prime time when I get it. And then still to have updates coming is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, any product that has code in it is going to have bugs. I don't care what product it is. You're going to have bugs in it. But you got to try to minimize that stuff. And we had done 4 or 5 months of beta testing. There's a lot of companies that will do things for 3 weeks of beta testing before they get the product out and ship it. We actually could have had a working unit at NAMM 2018. And we could have shown working units at that point. But we just put on the brakes. We're like, no, we're not going to show anything until the product's ready. Even when we showed it in September, the product was ready, but our sales and network was not put together. You can't. Part of the keeping it secret is you don't go telling all these distributors, hey, we're going to make a product, because then it's no longer secret.
Yeah.
The minute you go, hey guys, I have a secret, then everybody knows about it.
Yeah, that's right. Because then it's like, hey, I would tell you about this new thing, but it's secret. Don't tell anybody. Then that person says, hey, I can tell you about this new thing, but it's secret. Don't tell anybody, right? You still have everybody know it.
When I was at Roland, we actually used that on purpose one time.
Did you?
Yeah, we were at an AES show and we were showing a disc recorder, and we wanted it to leak, but we didn't want to leak it.
Yeah.
So there was a few dealers that we know. We told them, okay, we're going to show you this, but don't tell anybody. And 10 minutes later, we had people that come into the booth going, hey, I hear you have this new thing.
Oh, my God. I didn't tell anybody. That guy must have heard you when you said it to me. It's classic.
Yeah.
So D still asks, will ASM ever make a drum machine?
I don't want to talk about future products. I won't say we won't, but I won't say we will.
I can go with that.
Yeah.
That works. So shut up, D Still.
No, I wouldn't say that.
No. That's me saying that. I'm being clear. What else, Ken?
Oh, I'm trying to answer a tech support question while we're doing this. Yeah. Hey, one thing I want to say, and this is kind of a complete side note and derailing things, but anytime anybody tells me that they have an issue with an update or anything like that, the first thing I try to tell people is, hey, make sure you do a factory reset. Just make sure nothing has gotten out of whack or anything on your unit's end, because you'd be surprised how easily that can happen. So that's totally side note, but I do want to dive into the 1.4 update so we can kind of uglily segue into 1.4 update and what that brings, because if we're not going to talk about anything new or speculative, let's talk about what something is real and current.
And we happen to have a good scoop here because the update was released today and you guys are on our show today. So this is a good time to talk about it, just as much as any. So yeah, well, what are some of the new things? Noise generator has, 3 noise types? Now it's 7 noise types.
Yeah, Dominic's not talking. I'll make Dominic talk.
Okay.
That's you, Dom.
Well, one major update is the facelift in the mutator, in the mutant. So the other thing is what Corey just mentioned. We have new noise types. So we have red, blue, violet, and gray noises added. So you can do different quality sounds with different openness of noises in your sound design. Yeah, and for phase diff, you have a duplicate of the incoming waveform, but it is inverted. So you can do phase shifting to your taste manually, or even like modulate this parameter. So you can get pulse width modulation from saw wave, and to get a like perfect pulse width modulation. This is what Chen said. So if it's not perfect, you ask Chen.
That's funny.
That's for Nick Bat, because there wasn't enough pulse width mod options.
There you go. There you go. That was a special request.
Yeah.
One thing on the phase diff though is that on a sawtooth wave, yeah, it turns it into a square and does pulse width mod. But on other waveforms, it can do this like almost chorusy, almost phase shifting kind of thing, but without some of the weirdness of phase shifting and chorus. It's hard to describe. It can be really subtle depending on the waveform that's coming into it, because it is basically taking a sum and difference and then phase shifting them against each other. So on the two extremes, it's canceling itself out. So you can do, there's a lot of stuff between the wet, dry, and the phase amount that putting stuff to those two controls at once gives it all kinds of.
Well, what I found is that you can
the options, but
if you use something like the spectrum waveforms, or a waveform where you have basically like a gradual slope, like a lower octave sine wave, and then you've got higher octave harmonics going on inside of that waveform, you can kind of see the little squiggles of it kind of shifting down and moving across it. So it's you get this really interesting kind of effect where you're moving where the harmonics are at in the waveform, which is really fun. And then of course, if you modulate that stuff, you get like chorus effects and all this weird kind of like acid trippy vibe where everything's kind of wavy, but like you don't know why. You're just like, oh, everything feels a little off kilter, but I can't quite place my finger on why.
Yeah, it adds life.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of one of the things that I love about the Hydrasynth. You think digital synth, and there's been so much craze around analog for so many years that I think is really dope when a product does digital and it's just, hey, I'm digital, but at the same time, it doesn't have to sound stereotypically digital. You know what I mean? This does what it does really well. And then you added stuff like, drifting and what is it, warm mode in the last update, and all these different things. I saw somebody, guys are starting to do preset packs. And there was one guy that did like, I guess, classic preset packs, and I can't remember his name, but
push-pull.
Is it push-pull? And he did all like classic synth presets that were, kind of like Juno stuff and Jupiter stuff. Right. And it was hitting the mark. It was really hitting the mark every time.
Yeah, I've got a few patches that I've done that one of these days I'll finish them and put it out as a bank. And I was doing like, Oberheim brass sounds and stuff like that. And I've got an Oberheim directly above it. And I could sit there and A/B it, and I was doing things against my Pro 1, which is right above it as well. And you can do legit analog sounding stuff on it. It's just the minute people start saying, "Oh, virtual analog," people fall asleep. So I didn't ever want to mention that. The actual analog is great and it's wonderful, and you can't see this side of the room over here, but that's more where my other analog gear is. And I love analog gear, but I also love digital gear. And I don't think that there's one or the other. People, analog. It's like a chef that only bakes with potatoes.
That's right.
It's going to get boring after a little while.
That's right. Right.
Well, that was one of the first things that I remember when I first found out about the thing, that you were like, yeah, this is going to change. And can I say one of the early prototype names?
No.
Is that okay? No.
There you go. It's called no.
So no, like one of the early discussions was you didn't want it to be virtual anything. Like you said, no, out with anything that indicates virtual, because it's digital, but it's not virtual so much. And so like one of the original names was the Hydra V, and you were like, yeah, nothing with the V in it. Like I want it to be unabashedly digital and proud to be what it is. And I think that was something that, especially at the time, like people were going the complete opposite direction of. So, you know, it showed a lot of foresight. And, you know, of course, with Dom starting the project earlier on than that, it's like, I think ASM kind of had this idea like well in advance of what a lot of the current trend is, because now you're starting to see a lot more digital stuff coming back. You're starting to see, you know, other synthesizers are coming out with digital stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I think
and there's more interest too, even in classic digital synths. You know what I mean? Like,
but the thing that gets me about it
bit.
Is UI, because like there's a lot of really cool old digital synths, but they all have like horrible UI.
Word.
You know?
Sure. Yeah, one of the few great ones is right here. Right there. You know, the Waldorf microwave, and had a great UI on it. But it was like an analog synth UI.
Mm-hmm.
But things like below it, like I got a TX7 down there. And there's another one from another company that I hate the UI on the thing. There's one that's almost designed analog style, but and you look at it and go, oh, this thing would be so much fun to use. And then they buried everything in menus.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, this is no fun to use anymore. If you're going to do menus, then do menus in a good way.
Yeah, to make it intuitive.
Make the menus
yeah, and that's the other thing too that I think is really cool about the Hydra. One of the first things I noticed is that, like, it's powerful and it's deep, but it's intuitive. Like, and I mean, I don't know, maybe somebody out there would argue that, but I know when I sat in front of it and the way the buttons are laid out for the architecture of the thing, if you want the oscillator 1, 2, or 3, or you want, you know, whatever you might want, and then it's laid out in a way that's the signal flow. The buttons are there, there's a signal flow, and that kind of helps, you know, with understanding what exactly you're doing. It's literally a layout. It's almost like having a cheat sheet on the panel. You know, and then when you touch it, it all of a sudden has 8 knobs, up to 8 knobs or so, or more sometimes. So I think that was a pretty good UI design, and I've heard people say that a lot before too. I wanted to get to this one question. Is it says, hey, do they take questions? Do the guys have plans for substantial updates like the last two? Not sure what else they could add. Not that we want you to get into what the updates might be, but I guess what's your philosophy along the lines of updates and that sort of thing?
Philosophy of updates.
Do them.
My philosophy on updates is that you do updates that don't hinder the product. At some point in time, you have to say, okay, we've packed enough features in here. We're done. We're done with adding features. You know, every time I see Dave Smith, I don't go, Dave, how come you haven't updated my Prophet 5?
That's right.
And there's stuff that a Prophet 5 could definitely have that would make it interesting. Or, you know, I see Tom Oberheim, where's my expander update? It's like, no, there's times where it's like, no, it's baked, it's done. And if there's limitations, okay, well, I deal with those. And sometimes that works better. So updates can hurt a product. And one that you can't see that's behind me, that they kept updating it to the point of hurting the product. So will we add? Yeah, there's definitely stuff that we want to add, and we'll probably see something, you know, in the not too distant future that's probably going to be pretty significant. But you know, at some point in time, yeah, we'll definitely say, okay, it's baked. This is the product that it is.
Oh, well, we got something here that you could take out of it. You may as well take that third oscillator out, because Richard says it didn't even need the third oscillator. But no, I get what he's saying, because I remember, Glenn, when you first showed me, even before there was hardware for it, you were showing me some of the stuff, letting me hear some of the stuff. And then I remember we got so far into what this synth was doing, and he was like, "That's just the first oscillator." And I was like, "Oh, get the hell out of here!" And then you went to the second oscillator, and we went a long time through all of this stuff. And I was like, my mind was blown. Like, "Wow, get out of here!" And you're like, and there's a third. You know what I mean? So I definitely see what he's saying, because it gets deep with just the first couple of oscillators, but you know, you can make things as simplistic or as complex as you want them to be, but it still kind of remains intuitive.
It's funny because that third oscillator was originally a sub oscillator, and I was like, no, like that's not what a sub oscillator is. I was like, that's a full oscillator. What are you doing calling it sub?
Yeah, I had a talk with Daniel Fisher from Sweetwater, and he was doing sounds and stuff for us, and he talked to me for about 2 hours one day. He's like, "Dude, you can't call that thing. It's not a sub oscillator. It's a real oscillator.
Yep.
There's nothing sub about it. It's not just a sine wave an octave down or something." And so, you know, Daniel talked me into calling it oscillator 3, and yeah, so Daniel gets that credit.
So, Dom,
Yeah.
what about the Hydrasynth is something that really kind of gets you excited? Because I noticed that in a lot of your music, you've been using it a lot, and you've got a lot of cool synths too. I mean, you've got Roland System 100 behind you. I mean, you've got some really cool synths back there. What are some of the things about it that you find in your music that makes you say, "Oh, I'm going to use this. It's not just my day job. It's what I'm going to be using."
Well, for the Hydrasynth, actually, how it is designed is like what we want to have. That's our dream synth. So definitely, even before the product came out, we have ideas how to use it and how it can help in my production and in my performance. And so, yeah, so to me, I have a lot of different synthesizers, but each of them have their own personalities. Even they have similar sound nature, but the UI is different, and sometimes you need to have some limitations to get creative. So I tend to like move around sometimes on this and on that, and on Hydrasynth, the one thing I like the most is the musicality. So the polyphonic aftertouch, yeah, it's always the go-to in my studio. And the ribbon is fun to like film videos
ribbon.
and what it's doing up there. Oh, so what's that? Yes.
Well, the ribbon, that's a fun choice though. Like, so I mean, I feel like it's the new classic for one. I mean, obviously the sound is the sound, right? We can gush about that, but I think some of the things that really make it stand out, it's like the polyphonic aftertouch and the ribbon in a modern synthesizer is kind of unheard of, really. You just don't see that much, and especially not an affordable place. You know what I mean? So what was kind of the thought process that went into that? Was it just kind of like, "Hey, I want this, put it"?
I think Glen started these ideas, and we at that point we didn't know how it will really be implemented there or how it would work. I mean, say for the ribbon, we have no idea how many octaves we can do. Oh, we have 4 octaves keypad. Why not make it 4 octaves ribbon? And we try to test, okay, is the structure okay with it? And yeah, it turned out that it worked. And obviously, the ribbon has influence from CS80 and polyphonic aftertouch as well. I personally have a CS50. And actually, that aftertouch is pretty nice, although it's monophonic, but there's a springy feel to it, and it's much better than the modern ones. So if I remember correctly, it uses optic, so there's a gate there to open. You can actually like use it without much pressure. But again, the aftertouch nowadays, many of the monophonic ones, they're like just on-off switch. So yeah, a totally different story.
So I have another question here. Are you thinking of adding a step sequencer, or even better, was there a choice to put a sequencer in it and or not? Did that come up during the point of developing?
Yeah, I mean, we throw out all kinds of ideas. You know, ideas are pretty easy to come by and cheap. And we had to kind of think about, with everything, it's how do you access it? How do you use it? How's it going to be used in the end? And does it make sense? And how does it make sense? So yeah, there's things that we can do. There's things that we are planning on doing. But as far as, do you do a sequencer or arpeggiator? A lot of times it's a toss up about which way you go. And it has to do with UI and functionality of the product. I think if it had splits and layers and the ability to do multiple voices, then I'd definitely aim towards a sequencer and not the arpeggiator so much. But because it's got a single voice across the range of the instrument, an arpeggiator can be a lot more useful, I think, than a sequencer. You're probably going to be sequencing with something else. So, why not use your DAW or a MPC or something that's going to be a better sequencer? No, I can't hear.
Corey went silent.
Corey went silent.
There we go.
I saw you saying something. I was like, let me not step on his toes. But then you didn't say anything.
Go ahead, Jen. I was just kind of talking about the ARP. And really, I just kind of said how much I like to use it because I like ARPs on everything. So anytime I get anything, if somebody gave me a mandolin that didn't have an ARP, I'm going to be like, this ain't no damn instrument.
Well, that's one of the things that that I've noticed because really most of the team has been available and accessible online for people to kind of talk to through Facebook forums, and maybe to the point where you guys could be using you could be getting hit with an onslaught of repeat questions and that sort of thing. But is there anything that kind of comes up time and time again that you're like, well, yeah, I like maybe I should have done this differently, or do you feel like most of the feedback is pretty good? Like what's the vibe that you're getting from it? Glen especially has had a lot of experience with this stuff, but Dom, this is something newer for you as far as like being the face of a new product like that.
Yeah, totally. So even like our debut at the NobCon, I was amazed how people reacted to like playing the product, the Hydrasynth. I'm just amazed.
So that firsthand feedback is probably invaluable, right? Because I mean, you guys haven't said that this was at least kind of started in development in 2017 and coming through those years of development and finally getting in front of people and seeing that getting that feedback directly. I mean, that's pretty pure at that point. You know what I mean? There's always going to be some level of, people excited to get their hands on something that's not out there yet. But at the same time, you can tell when it's good feedback. I mean, whether they say something or not, because people are not shy. Right?
Totally, yeah.
So I could imagine getting that firsthand feedback is pretty good.
Yeah, man.
You guys got a great compliment here.
I like being active in the forums and stuff, and I try to when I can. There's times where I just have to shut it off and go to work and just kind of ignore them for a while. I think that, like, I don't go on Gear Slutsium, I don't go on some of the other sites anymore. I don't have time to bounce from one to the other. We're trying to build a brand, so we've got this product, but now then we've got the next few things that we're going to be doing over the next 4 years that we're already starting to lay out the groundwork for. So, Dominic and I just don't have a whole lot of time to do that, but the community is growing and the community is really good. The ASM, if you're not part of the ASM Facebook, the ASM Hydrasynth Facebook group that Ken started, it's a great one. People are really good on it. There's nobody that really acts up. It's not really there's nobody that needs discipline.
I haven't had to boot anybody yet, which is surprising.
And there's going to be every product. You can find problems with every product. There's not a piece of gear in my office here that I can't. Well, they should have done this, or they should have done that. and I'll look at things that I've done and, oh yeah, I should have done that. Oh, I wish I would have done this.
I saw one of your modifications that you made just the other day
Oh yeah.
to your
Yeah,
little keyboard.
Yeah,
Oh, the USB.
I'll own this one. So in PK25, I don't know why. I don't even remember the story about why we went to a micro or mini USB on it. I don't remember the story on it, but it was one of those things that I was like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool. It's small and it will fit, in your backpack or whatever. And that thing drives me freaking crazy.
Mine broke. So
the mini micros, they break all the time and they're hard. So I hacked mine. I don't know if I can see it there.
I still have mine, so I may have to do that same hack because the same port broke on mine. So now I'm like, man, I might have to do
mine's
that.
Not broke. Mine will either work, so I can use either type. But
nice.
Yeah, I hacked that. I'm in the process of hacking another product that I did that. I allowed an engineer to tell me, no, we should do the micro one because it locks. And well, if you think it's good, I don't have anything with micro, so I did it, and I kick myself all the time. I should have.
Glenn, it must have really been bothering you for you to be as busy as you are and look over at that thing and be like, I gotta have the regular USB.
It's been raining a lot here. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but I still have one.
Okay, what gear needs modifying? What needs fixed?
There you go. Let's see. Hold on. Somebody was saying, about the group. Here's the thing about the group. I like that there's a lot of contributors in the group. Like not just say cool things or say things that they found, but like there's guys in there that are developing. Like one guy developed a editor for Macs that works in Ableton.
Morphine.
Yeah, and there's another one that he's developing a separate editor. And, they already kind of have things laid out. And it's kind of cool that kind of contribution and that sort of collaborative sort of environment exists there. Then they'll throw those out there and be like, hey, I got this and I've done this. And what do you guys think? And I mean, they're putting a lot of work into those things. And it's only going to make the Hydrasynth more usable. And there's going to be those things the use case is going to be there for everything that those guys are throwing out there. And not only that, but the presets that guys are doing. It's a really good group just in general.
Yeah, the Sun God Raw preset bank that Roger did for us was amazing. He was just an end user, in Norway, I believe. And he did 128 patches and sent them to us. It's like, hey, I'm going to release these. If you guys want to release them, you can. And so we went over the things, and the sounds were really good.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is awesome. And some of his sounds are some of my favorite sounds on here now.
And nobody's trying to gouge for the presets that they do either. It's like they're reasonably priced, and they're really good presets. It's pretty good.
Yeah, somebody just did another bank of 32 for $10 or something. It's like 30 cents a preset. That's great.
Yeah.
Great deal.
You all ever think about some sort of ecosystem where these things are maybe hosted on the ASM site as like your own kind of Apple Store version of apps, but presets for your synth and stuff? You should do that because Dom said so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing. There's a lot of back end stuff like that we'd like to be able to do. But there's only a few of us, so we're kind of overwhelmed with the tasks that we already have at hand. And so we're just trying to build new products and add updates to existing ones and try to keep things moving and creative. And as the brand grows, then we'll have more availability and people to be able to do stuff like that. But when it comes to the web updates and all that stuff, that's me and Don, and so as well or as poorly as they get done, that's us having to do it.
So somebody's asking here too. I think they want you guys to get your screen printing skill set up too, along with the web development skill set, because they want more Hydrasynth t-shirts in the future. Blue, pink, red, etc. Like a one for each type of color and noise, colored noise.
There you go. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, we actually have t-shirts. We just don't have we don't have a mechanism to sell them and ship them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be like our sales guy would have to like individually pack them and ship. We don't have the throughput to do that right now.
Right.
So
right.
eventually, yeah, we'll start building up swag and that kind of stuff, and we'll probably have a web store at some point in time. But kind of product and the brand are the focus right now, and some marketing becomes kind of the ugly stepchild that we kind of ignore.
Well, you know what? I think too, that's probably at this stage, what's cool is that you got such a good community. There's like a good word of mouth, and there's a lot of stuff like this being sold for the synth, and that's being put out there for the synth. That's kind of maybe helping along the way with that stuff, because I can imagine there's a million things for you guys to do with being a new brand and getting everything standing up and to kind of keep ahead of things, so that it's not just one hit and there's right, good product after good product. So that's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah, how many artists have done like their first album is great, and then the next album really isn't?
Yeah. Why we got to talk about Bobby Brown like this? No, but it's true, and it's the same sort of thing. Same sort of thing.
No, exactly. Yeah, you got to follow it up. You got to follow it up with other products, and to build a brand, there's got to be more than, you're not always going to have a hit product.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have solid products. They have to be good.
I guess that's where building a team where you've got, pretty much the whole team are also end users, and you've got, a guy with a lot of experience in you there, and you've got Dom who's clearly passionate about it. So you guys not being a group that wants to do the whole teaser thing and talk about the future, does that help you kind of focus more as well?
Yeah, anytime that you can reduce the noise is good.
Well, I bring it up because I know that you places that you've been before are kind of known for talking about things well in advance. So it's a big shift.
And some of them have learned their lesson. Because when you go from product idea to product prototype to product shipping, a lot of times it feels like when you get product prototype, you're like, 90% of this thing's done. We're ready to go. Mm-hmm. And the reality, and I've told Dom and Shen this, I said, no, it's that last 10% is actually the 90%. And that's the part where everybody falls in their face. That's where, we've got a working prototype. Now we're going to show this thing. Or we don't even have a working prototype and we're going to show it. And then all of a sudden you get manufacturing problems, or you get, there was one product that we did at a couple companies ago that had an Apple interconnect in it. So it had to use an Apple chip. And it failed Apple's MFI program. So we've already shown this thing to dealers and distributors. They're like, here it is. It works. It's great. Well, Apple was like, yeah, no. So we had to redesign the thing from the ground up to have it pass Apple certification. So there's things like that come up that you're just like, wait, what? We followed all your specs. Oh, yeah, but we changed the specs.
Yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Too bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's that last 10% is the 90%. So I'd rather just not even say anything until the 99.9% is done. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of go, okay, now we can show it off. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the customer. You can sit there and leak, oh, look, we made a keyboard. But,
yeah.
So what? In 10 days, we're going to tell you about a new product.
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell me now?
That's right.
Do you guys not know what that product is in 10 days? Or are you going to come up with the idea in 10 days?
That's right. The problem is there's only one of them, and it's a half of one, and we're trying to get the other half in 5 days so that we can show you in 10 days.
I don't like the teaser thing. I'd rather just show a done product.
Well, here's a good question that comes up a lot is what was the decision factor in going with 49 key when at least 61 key or more is better all around?
Says SS88.
Says SS88.
There's a few factors. I mean, the original design started off as a 37. So we grew it to a 49. In the controller and keyboard market, the 49 note keyboards, and I've built a lot of controllers and sold a lot of controllers, so I know what the sales volumes are for a couple different companies at least. The 49 note sales volumes are this, the 61s are here, the 76s and 88s are down here. So you're a new brand, you're starting off, you've got 2 years of engineering where you're not making any money, you're just spending money for 2 years. And you got to say, roll the dice and go, okay, well, which is going to be the most popular? And the most expensive thing that you deal with in any product is the chassis. Mm-hmm. So when you go from a chassis to this big, to this big, to this big, to this big, yeah, you've added, maybe 12 plastic keys that don't cost a lot, but you've added $60 in mechanicals. Mm-hmm. And $60 your cost. By the time you get with markups through distributors and dealers and shipping and paying for marketing, that ends up being $250 to the end user. So, to hit a price point and stuff, you have to make decisions. And 49 is good enough to be able to do a lot with. Dave Smith's done a lot of 49s, done them well. So, yeah, we made a choice.
Mm-hmm. And then there's always controllers too, right? So,
yeah.
But then the poly aftertouch. But I definitely get the philosophy, and I think you can't even say it any better when you think about that the 49 keys sell the most, and then it drops significantly the bigger the thing gets. Because it is kind of cool when we hear about it, especially from us like covering products. We hear about something that comes out with a new 88 key. But are any of us going to buy it? We're not buying an 88 key anything. You know what I mean? There's going to be some players that are going to buy the 88 key thing, but then you also have people out there that have their favorite controller that feels exactly like they want it to feel, has the keys that they want on it, and they just assume buy the desktop because they have the keypad that they want.
And when you get into the real players, mm-hmm. the guys playing the 88 notes and stuff, those guys are way more picky about the feel. Mm-hmm. And that's really where feel, now you're talking about a guy who grew up on a piano or grew up on a Rhodes or grew up on something else. And so feel becomes even a bigger factor. Mm-hmm. And so you do the wrong 88 for that guy and you just cut out a bunch of the market. Mm-hmm. When we did an 88 controller for one other company, I brought in a bunch of piano players, like legit studio guys and home guys and piano teachers. And I brought a bunch of people, and I had 5 key beds from different companies. I had like the most expensive key bed, I had the least expensive, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. And we just put up a chalkboard, and I had guys come in over the course of a few days and just hit each one of the key beds and see which one they rated. And it was so funny because the cheapest, nastiest keyboard either was loved or hated. So guys either said, no, this is the best one, or mm-hmm. guys said it's the worst one. And mm-hmm. there was nothing in between. The most expensive keyboard bed was the same exact thing. Guys were either, no, this is the worst one, no, this is the best one, and nothing in between. Mm-hmm. And then mm-hmm. everything else was like kind of, in between. If it was 1 out of 5, this one was a 3.
Yeah.
And these were either 1 or 5. And it was like people were going to start fights about which one was best. Or
totally insulted.
Yeah. So it's like, again, you have to sell products at the end of the day. So you have to go, okay, well, which is going to be the least offensive?
So what was the decision then there to go with the desktop unit along with the 49 key one and with the pads and everything? I can remember when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, that's going to, in my mind, the first thing I thought was that's going to be popular because I'm obviously thinking from the beat maker's perspective and, pad layout and that sort of thing. What was the thought behind going the desktop and adding pads to it?
Well, again, you sell to different markets, and synths sell to really 3 distinct markets. And there's a lot of guys that look at a 49 and go, "Oh, that thing's too big." And so you get the guys who are not, I won't say they're not keyboard players. You know, they're musicians. Maybe they come more out of a DJ background or something. And there's guys that play modular, so they're, you know, or they do come out of a DJ, you know, beat maker kind of background. They're not looking to play Chopin,
right?
You know, they're not looking to, you know, redo Isotomito's, you know, Snowflakes or Dancing album. And so that market, you don't need the keys, and you need something that's portable. You need something smaller, and that market wants that. And you see a lot of other companies do it. I was pretty adamant that we wanted to release them both at the same time. You see a lot of companies that will do one or the other, and wait a year and then release the other one. And I don't think that's ever a good strategy, but so yeah, we're lucky to be able to do them both.
And I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. I mean, I see a lot of people that, just like the people that I thought would love the desktop, those are the people that love the desktop. That sort of subset that you were just talking about. And I think that plays right into, you know.
So I even use it where I approach it differently. You know, Dominic did a bunch of, like, he did the pad layouts and stuff, and there's different ones that, like, he came up with the fretboard mode, which I
love that.
And because, again, you reach for things differently. And it's like guys that, you know, are playing push or something, or guys that play MPC, and they've taken these things and they've turned it into their own instrument. And I like that you approach it differently with the pads versus the keyboard. With a keyboard, there's certain chords and scales that I'm comfortable in, and I go to that, and my stuff tends to all sound the same. So it's nice to get off of that and approach something from a different thing and try it, and you come up with different ideas.
Totally makes sense.
So I got a question from a friend of mine, Chris St. Albion, who just released a synth called Simple for Hallian. So he wanted to ask about with the Matrix Brute and Hydrasynth. He says they departed so much away from conventional synths at the time. I'd like to know if breaking away from conventional synths is intentional or a happy accident. And if it's intentional, what is it about conventional synthesis that you feel is yet to be where it needs to be?
Well, that's deep. I personally don't try to, like, break away from and do something unconventional. I think that if you try to do something unconventional, you can just end up with something weird. I think that what you try to do is you try to find weaknesses, or you try to find an advantage somewhere else, or find something that you can do better than somebody else. You know, the Matrix Brute thing ended up, that was not the original, like, idea behind it. The original idea was MS-20 style patch panel, but where you could have digital memories, because one of the biggest complaints on a mini Brute and stuff was, well, we're not seeing a lot of guys playing them on stage because you got to remember how to set the patches. You know, there's no programmable memory. So we wanted to do something that would keep modular flexibility, but programmability in that. And so we came up with some weird ideas of how, you know, writing a digital signal in the background, using TRS jacks or something. And one of the engineers came up with using a video matrix, or he saw a video matrix and he came up with that idea. And so we were like, oh yeah, that would work great. And so that's how it ended up like that. Now it grew to be the size that it had to, just because it physically had to fit the space of that. You know, I think that if you're just trying to do something that's already been done, well, what's the point? I mean, you got to do something there's got to be a reason. There's no reason to redo a Prophet 5. It's a great instrument. You know, every time I hear somebody, like, try to sing a Frank Sinatra song, I go, why are you doing this?
It's already perfect.
Yeah, he nailed it. It's done.
That's right.
Baked. We move on. Let's go do something different now.
Right. Classic. What's this? Somebody saying, can you use a external keyboard and then use the pads to activate the poly aftertouch functions? I'm not sure I understand that. I mean, you could play poly aftertouch on the pads, but you know, if your keyboard doesn't have poly aftertouch, it's not going to do that.
You could play them both at the same time. Like you could be playing your keyboard and your pads at the same time. But I'll leave it up to Dom more to answer that because Dom's the better player than me by far. So,
well, if the external keyboard is a sound module or synthesizer, then you can use the polyphonic aftertouch and map the monophonic aftertouch or polyphonic aftertouch data into that module. So it depends on that module if it can accept polyphonic or not. I mean, polyphonic aftertouch.
So one thing I was thinking is a possibility. I don't know if this would work or not. Is that you could be, if you're skilled enough, you could be playing with one hand on your MIDI keyboard monophonic, aftertouch controller, and play the same notes on the pads, and then express them polyphonically like that. You could do that. But then you'd be doubling notes, and it would get weird.
That's a wild way to go, but you could.
I see in the comments, DB was saying, so it's not possible to assign the pads just as a modulation function. No, it isn't. They're always attached to sending note data as well.
Yeah, they're just like keys.
Yeah,
I will say that who was it? Upright was just using his one of the synths that he has. I can't remember which one it is, but it has poly aftertouch.
He was using the Ultranova.
Yeah, and he was using the poly aftertouch on the Ultranova to play.
That's mono aftertouch.
But it's mono aftertouch. Yeah,
that's where me and him were. I was yelling at him about. I was trying to explain it.
That's right. That's the distinction, and whether or not it was mono or poly. But at any rate, he was able to use the aftertouch. So if you had a poly aftertouch MIDI keyboard of some sort, you could, play it.
I got something that you could use. You could use this.
Yeah, that's poly aftertouch.
Yep.
Or the Expressive E. Is that the name of the thing? What's the name of that keyboard?
You got rid of. You bought on Friday and took back on Monday.
Yeah,
the Touche.
Yeah, but now they make that technology in a keyboard form, which
the
will
Osmos
pretty
or
well.
something. It's called Osmos or something.
Yeah, that joint.
Yeah, that's cool. It's really cool. Yeah, I got to play it last year about this time. Yeah, Osmos is cool.
I really want to try that because I did really like the Touche. Like I thought that was cool. About that kind of stuff. So what sorts of things interest the two of you as far as like things that you haven't tried before? Like, are there possibly other expression techniques that interest you? Other types of synthesis that interest you? That sort of thing.
Dominic?
Yeah, throughout the development process, we actually try to come up with some really weird sensing mechanisms. So it's like nothing you've seen before. But Chen is always really quick in building those odd stuff, and he would give me back a video of him doing like, see, it works. but we also need to think in the aspect of the players and musicians. If it can stand in all kinds of environments, I mean, this product can be used live or in studios, and there are different situations. Maybe there are vibrations and all sorts of possibilities. So we don't want to have the product built, but used in certain environments that it is not usable. But we are aware of different kinds of expressive things. So we will not rule that out for our future products, I think.
I'm a big Star Trek fan, and there's a scene where they're using these controllers, and it's just like a gel that you sink your hands into.
Wow.
I'm just saying, just think about it,
I thought you were like with triple controllers. But that's old school Star Trek. So.
It's a slippery slope towards other technologies that I'm not even going to mention.
Yeah, I mean, you can get expressive things that you're always riding that line of, is it cool or is it just weird? And it can be a gamble, and you can spend a lot of time developing or going down a development path and spend a lot of money and time. And it could just end up being weird at the end of it. So I think
that's an interesting point, Glenn. I mean, for both of you guys, do you all ever kind of worry about that? Like, this thing we're going to try, is it just going to be like the three of us that like it? Or is it going to be like something that's going to be useful for folks?
Always.
Yeah.
How do you get past that kind of thing, though? Do you just have to, you test it enough or let enough people in that you get some feedback, or you just kind of trust your gut?
I think that we test a lot. I've got a small group of people who I know well, and I know what their bent is, and I know what their biases are. And so there's a few people that kind of get to see all my product ideas early, and I get feedback from them, and I kind of can rule things out pretty quickly, or see maybe this is a good path to go down. And then I'm kind of a synth history geek. I've been doing them since about 1980. Been in a sense. I've got big stacks of like old brochures and stuff. I've even got like brochures for things like a Buchla 400 and weird stuff that they go back. So, I mean, I look back at a lot of that kind of stuff and go, well, what did people do before? What's been tried and failed? Why did it fail? What are the reasons behind it? I was just watching a thing with interview with the band Heaven 17, and Martin Ware was one of our endorsees at Arturia, and he's a real talented guy, but he was talking about using the V-Synth live, and he was using the D-Beam, and they were talking this on YouTube, and he was talking about being there and like doing the D-Beam thing, doing this, and had like a whole audience of people doing this. No. This is
everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah, that gets into some really sketchy territory.
It's a great. I forget who did it. It might have been Matt talking to him live. But
that's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, you don't want it to be something weird.
Yeah.
Especially alternate controllers, they can be crazy.
I tell you, I found out that like I get really inquisitive about other things like that. So like I'll invest in and buy different things. There was a little device that's like this big, and it's like an infrared camera that's super accurate or something. I forget the name of it. But essentially you can use it as a MIDI controller with your hands to control all this stuff. And I had it for like a few weeks in the studio, and I'm a big comic book nerd, so I'm thinking, I'm gonna be like Iron Man, and I'm doing this and that. And I was like, I realized a few things. One, my hands are busy. Like, what am I thinking? Like, my hands are busy when I'm in the studio. I don't need to be waving them around or anything. And two, I like tactile response. Like, I want to physically feel that I'm creating change. Sound is already, ethereal enough as it is. And then it's like, if you take away the physical contact of that, that's just no.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. I mean, I've seen like all kinds of, going way back, there were like drumsticks that you could like play drum kits, and it basically kind of sent
air
and stuff. And like, air drums or something. And then there was a guy at the NAMM show in the 80s, and he wore like this like black jumpsuit and had like a pair of Chucks on that had like a jack in the heel, and he'd placed sensors all over, and he was showing like his new drum suit. And so he could like tap his feet, and he'd like hitting them.
Come on, really?
And this guy was sure he had $1 million idea.
You want to do this? Hear that? Bono.
Digital ham bone thing.
That's funny.
So yeah, I mean, a controller can go from a good idea to something weird, but it's the tactile thing. That's the big one. There's so many like things that you can do in space with your hands, but you can't control it. You want to try to control pitch. How many great theremin players are there?
Really?
You can count them on
One
hand
finger, maybe?
with some damage to it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was one girl that used to play, used to do things for Moog. This was probably 15 years ago, and she was amazing on the theremin. Yeah, she was like playing jazz standards and stuff on it. And but I haven't seen a whole lot of other people that like were amazing musicians on it because it's so difficult. So that's the other thing. It's like, is somebody going to have to learn a whole new technique to play your instrument?
Right, right. Valid.
Yeah.
That's
How many
valid.
people are ready to invest in that?
Mhm.
You know, oh yeah, I'm ready to spend 5 years to become a master at this.
At this thing that may go out of production, and I'll be
No,
the
we-
one only living virtuoso of this thing that I have to now keep running to.
Yeah.
Right? There's that kind of thing. Well, cool. I think we've gone. It's a little bit over an hour now, so we'll wrap here shortly. But what else about the ASM and the Hydra would you guys like people to know? I mean, what kind of plans do you have for the future without going too deep into any products? Obviously, what's your hopes for ASM? I guess I should say.
To build a solid brand. We want to build good products. We want to build products that make sense. We want to do things either differently or better. Always, every time you come up with a product, you have the opportunity to look at what everybody else has done and see if they've done it right or if they've done it wrong or if they've missed an opportunity somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be even some crowded markets that we might look at in the future. That I personally love crowded markets because that's an opportunity, I think, to find something that is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And Dominic just wants to make accordions. So.
No, Chen.
There you go.
Yeah, I think
accordions with sequencers.
Yeah.
I think Chen will be excited to hear this.
Chen, besides being the symphonic black metal programmer, plays accordion too.
Yeah.
Chen is probably the best musician out of any of us. He's a really good
accordion. That's incredible.
guitar player, but then the accordion takes that factor out. So.
Yeah, he was posting up stuff about that, and I was just like, yeah, okay.
I saw.
But I'm willing to check it out.
I saw a guy playing an accordion at the Target parking lot last time I was outside before we all got put on house arrest, and I was like, oh well. You don't see that every day. Guy in the Target parking lot playing the accordion. So okay.
Well, living in Delaware, there's a local accordion player that named Weird Al Yankovic, and that guy, he's about the only accordion player that I've ever watched. And I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. But
and Weird Al's great.
Yeah, Weird Al's awesome. He's legit awesome. But this has been a good talk. Hey Dom. Everybody healthy out there?
Oh yeah,
because I get a ton of questions about COVID-19 and the team out there, so I just want to make sure everybody's healthy at ASM and everything's okay.
Yeah, everybody's doing good, and Chen is extra healthy. He seems.
He's extra healthy. Super Chen.
In a previous meeting, he's not coughing at all. I know he's doing good.
That's funny.
Thanks for asking,
so you guys are like, Chen's like, wait, hold the meeting for a second. I'm going to hold my breath for 30 seconds just to prove.
And press mute and then.
Breathe out.
No.
So Ken, this guys,
they're ahead of the curve on us. So we're
they are
in Los Angeles. The peak is supposed to be this week, and I don't know in Delaware if it's.
They're saying within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, probably in 2 weeks or whatever. We're not that far from New York, and New York's getting hit pretty heavy. So, hopefully everything just stays safe, and just everybody kind of takes it seriously and kind of doesn't get too wrapped up in weird conspiracies or anything, and just
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
listen. If a conspiracy is true, that's great, okay. But in the meantime, take it seriously.
Stay home.
It's not gonna hurt you to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorize at home. And that's fine. Everybody's cool with that.
Yeah. Like,
Well,
somebody had posted on Facebook a couple weeks ago, you know, you're not being asked to storm the beaches of Normandy. You're you're being asked to sit on your couch for a couple weeks.
that's right.
We
right.
can do this.
Yeah, we could do that. Well, hey guys, I appreciate you guys coming on, and you know, good luck on future endeavors. I'm really looking forward to see what you guys come with in the future, and how the company grows. It's not often you get a chance to see a new company come out with a great product and show so much promise. So
Thank you.
thanks for
Thank
all
you
the
very
good
much.
work that you guys do.
And thank everybody who's out there buying them. We appreciate it. You're taking a chance with us, and we do appreciate that. So.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Ken, you got anything?
Everybody make music.
Word.
That's the best thing that's come from the whole COVID thing and all that. I'm seeing so many people making music. I just want to see people keep that up and like keep that same energy when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, you know what, Kim? We probably got to keep the same energy on doing shows twice a week too. But I'll just blame that on you, and we'll move on. All right, everybody. This is Beat People Podcast, episode 63. We're out.
Thank you. See you.